Good evening, students. In this video, we are going to see Callbyreference. Right. In the last video, we have seen up to call by value um, along with example, right? And now we are going to see call by reference. Okay. So when using call by value method, the only way to modify the value of the variable in calling function is to use return statement. That is what we have seen in call by value. While we are calling a particular function inside the main function, that is in such case main function is said to be calling function, and the function which is called by main function is said to be called function. Okay. So here the calling function, in case of call by value, okay, the calling function passes the values of the variables directly to called function. Okay. And in such case, all the modifications or changes that have been done by the called function is not reflected in the calling function. That is, it will be reflected only in the called function. It will not be reflected in calling function. So this is what the major drawback associated with the call by value. And if you want to make modifications in both called function as well as in calling function just by following call by value, in the sense we will have to use return statement. This is the only way to make the modifications or to reflect the modifications in both the called function as well as calling function, right? But in case of call by reference, when we compare to call by value, call by reference is the better option to modify the value of the variables in both the calling function as well as in called function. Okay, so parallelly the modification is done uh, in both the calling function as well as in called function. Okay, so this is what the main difference between call by value and call by reference. In case of call by value, in order to make modifications in both the calling function as well as call to function, we have to use only the return statement, and this is the only way, right? But in case of call by reference, we don't have to use extra statement or any other concept. Just we can what to say, we can have the modifications in both the calling function as well as in called function. Okay, so in case of call by reference, as the name implies, in this term the reference refers to the address of the memory location of a particular variable. That is what reference. Okay, in case of call by value, calling function passes values of the variables directly to the called function. But in case of call by reference, we declare function parameters as references rather than normal variables. That is, instead of variables, here we declare function parameters as the references. References in the sense address of the memory location of the variables. Okay, when this is done, any changes made to the values of the variables by called function are reflected in the calling function too. That is, here the calling function doesn't pass any values of the variables. Instead, it passes the address of memory location of the variables to the called function. Therefore, all the changes that are going to be done by the called function will be reflected or directly reflected in address of the memory location. Okay, so whatever changes that have been done by the called function will also be reflected in calling function, because the values of the variables are actually stored in the same memory location, right? So all the changes that are going to be done by the called function will be updated in the memory of the location. Okay, so memory level the update ஆகுறனால the modifications or the changes will be reflected in both the calling function as well as in called function. right? To indicate that an argument is passed using by call by reference, an ampersand sign, that is this symbol, is placed after the type in the parameter list. Okay, as I said before, in case of call by reference, we are not going to use normal variables. Instead, we are going to use pointer variables. Pointer variables are mainly used to hold the address of memory location of particular variable. In order to represent that, we use this ampersand symbol in calling function just before the name of the argument or parameter. And in called function, we will be using asterisk symbol, that is star symbol. Okay, let us see one example in order to understand this particular concept clear. Okay, wow. Look at this example. Look at this example. I have taken the same example, what we have seen in call by value. Okay, we are going to do the same operation, that is addition operation. Okay, we are going to do the same operation, addition, just by following call by reference method. Okay, in the previous example, we have followed call by value. Here we are going to follow call by reference. Okay, so first, uh, start looking at this function declaration, void add of int star n. This is actually asterisk symbol. Okay, star n semicolon. This is what function declaration statement. And here function name is add, return data type is void. Okay, so this asterisk symbol indicates that this n is not a normal variable. It is a pointer variable. Okay, in order to indicate that, we give asterisk symbol just before the name of the parameter. Okay, so this is what in the case function declaration and definition, that is called function declaration and definition. Now come to calling function, that is main function, because this function is going to call this add function. Okay, so this is what definition of calling function, and this is what the definition of called function, that is void add function. Okay, so come to the definition of add function. Here void add int star n, and here star n is equal to star n plus 10. That is, the star n indicates that this value 10 is actually added to the value, not added to a particular variable. It is added to, 10 is added to a particular value which is stored in the memory location n. Okay, so this n indicates that the address of the memory location of the variable. Okay, so star n is equal to star n plus 10, and the value which has been stored in that particular memory location is updated with the addition of 10. Okay, so after adding this value, next we print the value inside the definition of the called function. Add the value of number in the called function. When we are inside the called function, the value of the number is equal to n. Okay, so here n is updated by just adding 10 value. Okay, now come to the definition of calling function. Here we declare the number value. Number is equal to 2, initialized to 2, and the value of the number before calling the function. Till now, we did not call the add function. Okay, so before calling that function, the value of the num is displayed here, num. And when we execute this particular statement, the number value will be 2. Okay, and only after displaying this value, we call the function add. Okay, so as I explained earlier, when we call the function just by using call by reference, we have to add or place ampersand symbol just before the name of the parameter. Okay, so here name of the variable is num, and this value is actually that is address of memory location of this particular variable is actually going to be passed to add function. Okay, so add of ampersand num semicolon. This is nothing but function call statement by using call by reference. Okay, So after calling this function, we print the value of number after calling the function. Okay. So when this particular statement is being executed, the program control will automatically transferred to the definition part of add function. Okay. And this part we have already seen. I have already explained. Okay. So now n is equal to this n value is nothing but the address of memory location of this number variable. Okay, so address value is passed to this one, and here address value is updated. Address value is updated in the sense the address in which the corresponding value 2 has been stored in the computer's memory is updated by adding 10. Right, and after completing this execution, we again display the value of the number after calling the function. Okay, so after calling the function, even after calling the function, that is before calling the function, there was no change in the variable value. After calling the function, the variable value has been changed in both called function as well as calling function, because we are displaying the value of the variable in called function as well as in calling function. Okay, so now num is equal to the value 12. Initially it was 2 and now it is equal to 12, and next to return 0 closing brace. When we execute this particular program, we will get this output. Okay, the value of the number before calling the function 2 and number in the called function. Okay, in the called function, the value is actually modified, that is equal to 12. And after calling the function, in the calling function also, the modification is reflected, that is number is equal to 12. Okay, so this is what the concept of call by reference. So when we compare call by value and call by reference, we may ask ourselves which one is better, right? So when we compare these two concepts, we can say that call by reference concept is better one or better way to make modifications in both the calling function as well as in called function rather than call by value. Okay, let us see one more example. So whenever we think of call by value and call by reference, we automatically think of the concept swapping variables. Okay, swapping any two variables. Swapping in the sense we are going to interchange the values of any two variables. Okay, so here we take two functions in order to explain the concept of both the call by value and call by reference. That is, we are going to differentiate call by value and call by reference, right? So first one is swapping operation is done just by following call by value method, and the second one is by following call by reference method. And in case of call by value, as usual, we pass just the parameter list. Okay, parameter list. And in case of call by reference, we pass the list of pointer variables, that is pointer parameters. Okay, so that's why here we have given asterisk symbol alone. In both the declaration statements, we did not specify any argument name or parameter name. Okay, so next one, main function definition. This is what calling function definition, and these two are called function definitions. Okay, and these two functions are going to be called by main function inside this portion. Okay, so let us see the definition of the first one. Swap call by value. So whenever we say swapping operation, it can be done with the help of or by executing the three statements. In order to swap the values of any two variables, we have to take one more variable, that is temporary variable. Okay, so inside this definition, we declare one more variable, int temp. Okay, already we have taken two variables, two parameters, integer a and integer b. Inside this definition, we take one more variable, temporary. Temp is equal to a. That is, the a value, current value of a is stored or assigned to temporary variable. Okay, and now we are going to store or assign the b value to a. Okay, so now a is equal to b, and next b is equal to temp. That is, the current value of temporary variable is assigned to b. right? Just by executing these three statements, we can swap or interchange the values of A and B variables. Okay. Now, after executing these statements, the values have been changed. That is, suppose if initially A is equal to 1 and B is equal to 2 in the sense, after executing these statements, A will be 2 and B will be 1. Okay, ma'am. So, in the temporary variable, 1 is assigned and the B value 2 is assigned to A, and next B is assigned to the temporary variable value, that is 1. Okay, so printf in function call by value method. This is call by value definition. Okay, ma. So inside the function call by value method, A is equal to the interchanged value, B is equal to the swapped value A comma B. Okay. Similarly, the next function is also defined, and this is by following call by reference method. Okay. So here we take two more variables, integer asterisk symbol C comma asterisk symbol D. That is the address of memory location of variables are passed to this function. Okay, ma. So here also we take the temporary variable, that is swapping. Concept of swapping is similar to the both methods, call by value and call by reference. Okay, so temp is equal to asterisk C is equal to asterisk D is equal to temp. And once we have interchanged or swapped the values of C and D, and here the values are not swapped, instead the address of memory location, that is the values stored in the corresponding address of memory locations are changed. Okay, so in function call by reference method, C is equal to the value, D is equal to value. The swapped values are displayed here also. Okay, so that's all about definitions of call by value and call by reference. Now come to main function definition. Here we take four variables. In order to use two variables for each function. Okay, ma. So A and B are used in call by value, C and D are used in call by reference. So initially A is assigned to 1, B is equal to 2, C is equal to 3, D is equal to 4. So first we display the values of A and B before calling the function. Okay, so inside the main function, A value is equal to 1, B value is equal to 2. Okay, now we call swap call by value, that is this function is called, and here we pass the values of the variables directly, that is A value and B value. Okay, so when we execute this particular statement, the corresponding function definition will be invoked. Okay, executed. And after executing in main function, A is equal to the value, B is equal to the value. This is after calling the function swap call by value. Okay, and next we display inside the main function, C value is equal to D value is equal to 3 and 4. Okay, and next we call by reference function, swap call by reference, and here instead of the values of the variables, the address of the variables are passed. That's why we have given like ampersand C ampersand D. And after calling this function, we again display inside the main function, C value is equal to D value is equal to, and return 0 closing brace. In order to differentiate or check whether the values have been changed in both the calling function as well as in called function, just by following these two methods, we have given 4 printf statements here. Okay, before and after calling the function. Let us see the output of this particular program. First, we have call by value method, right? So inside the main function, A value is equal to 1, B value is equal to 2. And next we call by value method swapping function. And even after calling the swap call by value function, that is call by value method. This is inside the called function. Okay, ma? We print the value inside the called function, right? That is what the second statement. In the function call by value method, that is in swap call by value method function, a value is equal to 2, b value is equal to 1. That is, the values have been changed or modified, or modification is reflected in called function. Next, come to calling function. In main function, a value is not changed. That is, the modification is not reflected. A value is equal to 1, just as the previous one. B value is equal to 2. So this is what the concept of call by value. Next, we have called call by reference. So before calling this function, C is equal to 3, D is equal to 3 in main function. Okay. And in the called function, that is call by reference function, C value and D value has been swapped. C is equal to 4, D is equal to 3. And now we are checking in main function. We check main function whether the modification is reflected or not. So here in main function also, the modification is reflected. C is equal to 4, D is equal to 3. Okay, so this is what the difference between call by value and call by reference. Okay, so that's all about call by value and call by reference. Next, we are going to see recursive functions. Okay, that we will see in the next video. Thank you.